To expand the conversation, we're joined by Executive Director of the Initiative for Strategic Litigation in Africa, Sibongile Ndashe. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, it's quite a bold move because the message here is pause, listen, revise, strengthen, then ratify. What specifically do you feel needs to be paused or reconsidered in this convention?
So the convention has already been adopted, and then the ratification process is the next step before the convention enters into force. Mm-hmm. And it requires 15 ratifications to enter into force, and we already have one ratification from the Gambia. The challenge with this convention is that procedurally it was flawed the way in which it was designed. It usually takes years to develop a convention, mm-hmm. a human rights treaty. This one was done in a record-breaking speed of 3 months. The first draft appeared on the 16th of September 2024, and the final draft appeared on the 22nd of December 2024, and in February of 2025, it was adopted by member states of the African Union at the Union Summit. When you have a convention that is drafted at this speed, then you know that there are things that go wrong. First of all, there was no meaningful public participation. Mm-hmm. Civil society was asked to do a survey before the first draft appears, because when you do consultation, as we know from domestic level, you do consultations on the draft, the things that you asked for. Are they there? Can you see them? So procedure is not the only thing. Structurally, this convention is not drafted like a treaty. A human rights treaty typically has got 3 sections, what we call perambular content, the preamble, and then you have the substantive section where the rights are set out, and more importantly, it's clarified the state obligation. Mm-hmm. And then the 3rd section is what we call the operational section. Inside the substantive section of this convention, you find content that is perambular. Things like objectives, things like principles. Objectives are not rights because they are just telling you why is it that we developed, this convention. Mm-hmm. But it needs to move beyond that and actually say, we developed to do this, so these are the rights that you have, and these are the things that the state must do to protect that right. So there is a particular way of reading a treaty as a legal instrument. So sometimes people can see words there, but we need to go beyond words appearing in this instrument and saying, are they doing what they are supposed to do? So for example, there is a word that has made people very excited, words like cyberspace. In law, we talk about tech-facilitated gender-based violence because it's a recognition that, yes, whilst we have technology that has helped us to improve our lives, but this technology is also abused in the sense that it is used to facilitate gender-based violence. Mm-hmm. So we have a new form of offenses of violence against women like cyber stalking, doxing. We are seeing all of this online harassment, and it just goes on. Now, if you wanted to protect people, then you would guarantee the right to digital safety and then proceed to say that member states must prohibit all of these new forms of violence, because the problem that we have, member states are saying, if someone takes a phone and they put it up below your skirt and take pictures of you, then that's not a criminal offense, mm-hmm. right? Upskirting is not. So part of this is to then say we need to prohibit all of this tech-facilitated GBV. The second thing that we know states have to do is to regulate harmful content, because there's all of this harmful content that is online, and also regulate big tech, because most of these platforms are privately owned, and more importantly, to deal with cross-border jurisdictions, because some of these things happens outside of,
So if you'll allow me, just pardon this interruption, some may
It's okay.
argue that delaying adoption risks slowing progress, especially at a time such as this when gender-based violence remains a crisis across the continent. How do you respond to such concerns? Because in the other instance, if the convention is adopted without the changes that you're proposing, what are the legal and practical implications for African countries that have already committed to the stronger protections under the protocol?
Well, this convention basically regresses some of the things that we have achieved in previous convention, like CEDAW and like the Maputo Protocol. In fact, what we have been asking people who are promoting this convention is to say, this is a very short convention, but can you give us one provision that you say this is the best, this is the advancement that this convention has actually made? There are a lot of things that are mentioned there, but as I say, this is a legal instrument, and a legal instrument has to be fit for purpose. So people like us who are women's rights lawyers that go to court before the African human rights systems, before our domestic court, we are saying that for the purposes that a treaty should exist for, this one actually fails. So it's not delaying, like going fast does not necessarily mean progress. Like sometimes it doesn't matter the speed, right? They say if you're going the wrong direction. And that's why we are saying this. But the dangers of going ahead with ratification is because we have things that should not be there. So it's not that it is conceptually weak or that it is structurally shambolic and all of that.
Yes.
It's because instead of giving us more rights, it actually takes away from the rights that we have. For example, there's a very dangerous definition of what a family is. It says a family is as provided for by member states. Now, this has always been a contested issue, but the reason why we have international law to begin with was that the world recognized that sometimes states actually fail to protect their nationals. So we go to the international fora to seek protection. So if you are saying that family, whatever it is that family, the state says must happen in a family, how it has provided for families, is the definition of family, that takes us so many years ago, because there are many countries, for example, in Egypt, prosecution services are saying media houses cannot report on rape cases. And the reason for that is because they want to protect family values.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, you're coming to a very heated point as you describe and unpack that. But unfortunately, our time is up. But we get the gist of what you're going to be doing tomorrow as you call for a pause in the adoption of the African Union Convention and ending violence against women and children. Thank you very much for that breakdown. Executive Director of Initiative to Strategic Litigation in Africa, Sibongile Ndashe.